Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game with me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire. It's questions day, Kieran, and the first question, of course, is why are you listening to this on Boxing Day, everybody? I would say, did you have a nice Christmas, Kieran? But we tied ourselves in knots last year at the pretense that we were actually doing these live or the day before. So let's not do that again. Let's just ignore producer guy's instructions and admit that for the next couple of weeks, the pods you are hearing are pre-recorded. It's currently the Wednesday before Christmas, so if anything happens over Christmas, we won't be talking about it, on or off the pitch. We've also ignored Guy's suggestion rather than instruction that perhaps we could try recording during the day this year to avoid last year when people seemed to enjoy me getting more and more drunk as each day went on through Christmas. I mean, it's very realistic, Kieran, but, you know, it's winter. Christmas is coming up. I've got a glass of wine and it gets lonely in my tummy if I only have one. So how are you? I'll tell you what, how was your Tuesday before Christmas? Let's be festive like that.
I spent most of it marking accountancy exams. So
Merry Christmas.
That's as festive as it can get.
What a lovely, pleasing image. Did you have a little bit of tinsel on your head as you?
Yes, and my crap Christmas jumper with a reindeer with reindeer wearing a tie for reasons best known to himself.
There's no such thing as a crap Christmas jumper, Kieran. I will not have that sort of talk on this podcast. And if a reindeer wants to wear a tie, I imagine he looked very dashing.
Hey,
very much. So it's questions, and let's get through some of these questions, Kieran, and we can all carry on with Christmas. Our first one comes from Alex Hare, and Alex says, "Merry Christmas to you, Alex." Alex says, "Any Championship, League One or League Two players who were called up to represent their country at the Qatar World Cup missed a lot of games for their club. What happened to their wages for the weeks and the games they missed for their club while they're away at the World Cup?" Do you know what, Kieran? Our waiting list is so long. I suspect this might be about the Russia World Cup, but I think, and I'm judging by the fact that Qatar seems to have been added in red, that the producer guy has desperately tried to make this topical by pretending it's about the World Cup that's just finished. So let's go along with that suggestion, Kieran. So it's a good question, and it's a subject, Kieran, that our listeners are fairly obsessed with. They really want to know about insurance and about wages and about what happens to their players when they're playing for their countries at a tournament.
Yes, so the players have a contract of employment with the club, and therefore the club is obliged to pay them a monthly wage, as we're aware. They're not paid weekly, despite the way that we talk about football.
Yes, it is.
But in addition to that, FIFA have an arrangement with all of the national leagues. And they have something called the Club Benefits Programme. And what they've effectively agreed to do is to pay each club $10,000 per day, or just short of $10,000 per day, starting about a week before the tournament commenced. Therefore, the clubs themselves are given some form of recompense. And if you are a League One or League Two player, that's $70,000 a week. So we now start to talk about footballers' wages in terms of weeks. And there's not that many clubs in League Two who are paying $70,000 a week. So those clubs will actually benefit significantly. The money is slightly tiered. So if you get to the final, I think it works out as around about $370,000 in total for a club. So that's what Brighton will have got from FIFA in respect of Alexis McAllister, who we are recording this on the Tuesday night. Brighton are at Charlton on Wednesday night. He's not been seen at Gatwick just yet, and I think we're not expecting him back for a few days. Judging from the scenes in Buenos Aires, which have been absolutely amazing, And B, one or two comments which he's made to his girlfriend on social media, which were perhaps a little bit hasty, but would suggest that his thoughts are elsewhere.
Yeah, I don't like to spoil your Christmas, Kieran, but I think you should mention him as much as you can until the 31st of January, because I suspect that, like several other ex-Brighton players, and indeed your ex-manager, you will stop talking about him completely. Has he been tweeting that he really has just been pretending that he likes quinoa, that sort of thing? I suppose, Kieran, on a serious note, League One, League Two players, clubs who did lose players during the World Cup, deserve compensating because they actually did lose their players because their games carried on. Whereas, of course, Premier League clubs didn't really lose their players, did they? They only lost them from lucrative friendlies and training sessions. So, League One, well, players going to the World Cup are by association good players.
Yes.
So if a League One or League Two player missing from the club at a very important time of the season, I think it's only right that they should get recompense, don't you?
Yes, and we are more than happy to throw brickbats at FIFA when they are deserved. But this does seem to be quite a democratic approach in that it's not linked to the division or the leagues in which these players are being recruited to represent their national teams, and it's a flat fee. So that is good, and there will be some some beneficiaries financially, and I'm sure that those clubs impacted. Even the clubs in the Championship, who the Championship did have a bit of a hiatus. There's plenty of them, and at a time when money is tighter than ever in football, I'm sure it's gratefully received.
Yeah, we mentioned this in last week's pod. I think we did. We haven't recorded it yet. We're not doing that till tomorrow morning. But I think we're planning to mention it. But my God, Infantino looked pleased with himself before this World Cup, but he just really looks like the cat who's got the cream now. Or as my mum used to say, he looks like a dog with two dicks. He just looks... You just want to grab hold of him and say, that World Cup final has nothing to do with you. It wasn't one of the best games ever because of you, you smug looking. But anyway... let's not go over that old ground, which we may or may not be doing in the last pod. Our next question comes from Scott Rees, and it's actually germane to an interview we did very recently with this club's ex-chairman. And Scott Rees says, in 2016, my club Swansea City were bought by an American investment group fronted by Jason Levine and Steve Kaplan in controversial circumstances. And we did speak to Hugh Jenkins, who was... one of the owners at the time, stayed on as chairman, who explained in not that much detail, but certainly gave us some really interesting insight into this sale. I don't think he used the phrase controversial circumstances. Scott goes on to explain that Swansea were relegated from the Premier League 2 years later and have since sold off key players in an attempt to become self-sustainable. With the owners being an investment fund and with large amounts of revenue coming in through player sales and little being spent to bring players in, a lot of fans feel the owners have been taking money out of the club for themselves. Having looked at the accounts myself, I don't see any blatant withdrawals from the club into the owner's pocket, unless I've just completely missed it. Can you see anything I've missed?
Well, Scott, I think you have assessed it correctly. There's no evidence that Levine and Kaplan are taking money from the club. And in fact, if they are an investment fund, the way that an investment fund would normally work is to pay some money to buy a business in year one, run it as leanly as they can, and try to make it more sustainable. So I think certainly the Swansea player sale approach has been very successful since the club was relegated. And looking at the accounts in front of me, their player sales have generated probably around about 20 times as much as the player purchases in that period of time. So clearly that is the strategy of the club. And what Levine and Kaplan potentially will do, and I've got no evidence to support this, you make your money on when you leave the building. So you buy it for X and you sell it for a multiple of X, and that's what we've seen at at Liverpool potentially. The owners there could sell it for probably 12 to 14 times what they paid for the club. The Glazers will be, the Glazers are looking for a huge financial return if they do give control of Manchester United away, and that is a strategy. And that's how sort of private equity works in particular. You've got an eye on the exit door the minute you walk into the club or the business in hand, and you try to improve it financially. The best way to improve Swansea City financially, and this is the paradox of football, is to get promoted. But to get promoted, of course, you have to spend money, which is so you've got this tension between do you gamble to try to acquire the talent to get you promoted, or do you just go and rely on player sales to bring the money in? But of course, if you become a selling club, then that's going to impact upon what happens on the pitch. So it's a genuine it's a genuine paradox of football, and this is why football clubs lose money, because they don't get it right all the time, and ultimately you can only have 3 clubs promoted regardless.
When an investment company, Kieran, with a lot of money obviously available, buys a big club, a club like Swansea City, for example, do they have people there who, by experience or instinct, will 3 years down the line say, I don't think this club is ever going to be worth more than it is now. This is the time to sell? Or do they realise that these things are cyclical and they just wait and see or wait till they get bored?
Football's an intriguing one, because what we are seeing from these investment funds is they come into football with the mentality of hard-nosed business people, with a view for a pure financial return. And under normal circumstances, they'd cut their losses and try to flog it off if that didn't work. But we've mentioned Coventry City on many occasions on the show recently, with regards to sort of ongoing news issues, and the owners there. It now looks like they have sold the club. The owners there just ended up subsidising the club every year, even though it would appear to go completely against their principles of looking after the interests of shareholders. So football it's a strange industry, because you've got a clash of cultures in terms of ownership between those who are looking for a financial return, and I think that ultimately is what many of the American owners are seeking, and many of the finance-based owners, and those who are looking for an emotional return. So if you think about Palace and Steve Parish, he's not focused on making money. I'm sure he'd like to. Steve Parish does pretty well out of Palace, but that isn't his prime concern. It was initially to save the club, and B to try to try to establish Palace in the Premier League, which he has done. And it's the same with my club Brighton. Tony Bloom's 400 million quid down. Could he get most of that back? He'd get a sizable chunk of that back, but I don't think he'd get all of his money back. So you then got people with that mentality up against the American let's focus on things purely from a financial perspective, and that causes I think further differences. And for me, as somebody that analyses it makes it all the more fascinating, because the numbers really don't stack up a lot of the time.
Our next question, Kieran, comes from Ruthie Peacock. Unless she pronounces it Pico, because I knew a chap once called Paul Peacock, only he pronounced it Paul Pico, which we've said, if you had a name as good as Peacock, why would you ruin it by saying Pico? It's a great name, Peacock. Ruthie Peacock.
It wouldn't work in Grace Brothers, would it?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, of course, that would have spoiled a lot of jokes, wouldn't it? Mrs.
Yes.
Peacock. Ruthie has an interesting question, but she opens with an interesting gambit. Because Ruthie says, I don't actually follow football, but I find the pod very interesting, which I think says a lot about us, Kieran, but I'm not sure which way it says a lot about. Rufy says, I also enjoy the various shows, for example, Amazon's All or Nothing series that follow a team throughout a whole season. I wondered whether there was a payment that these teams, for example, Man City, receive for taking part in these shows. Do they receive royalties for number of views, etc., as well? I imagine they would lure more fans, ergo maybe sell more merch or increase ticket sales. But with the shows going out to a global audience, I did wonder what's in it for them to let the cameras in, which is a very interesting question, Kieran, because they claim, whether it's true or not, they claim that there's no editorial control, and what you're actually getting is a very realistic fly on the wall view. So you think when it comes to a huge club, you do wonder financially why they allow these cameras in for the whole season.
Well, I think the clubs are aware that they can expand the brand. If you take a look at what's happened with Formula One's All or Nothing, so Formula One's Drive to Survive, that has increased the interest in Formula One in the USA exponentially, and there's been a huge surge in additional revenues generated. So therefore, we've seen these take place for Leeds United. I think Palace had one, didn't they?
Yes.
Manchester City have had one. Leeds, Spurs, Arsenal, and so on. And the clubs ultimately they're giving away some of their intellectual property. They are letting people inside the door of Tottenham Hotspur Limited, Manchester City PLC, and so on, and therefore that they're entitled to a reward for that. So there will have been a contract between the show producer and the football club, and there'll also have been a contract which will have said, these are the number of hours of access that you will have. These are the places you'll be allowed to access. And you'll be able to ask questions of these people about these topics. So everything will have been, I think, laid down fairly much in advance, and the club's lawyers and the show producers' lawyers will have been through the small print. So there will be a financial benefit for the football club because Netflix and Amazon do very well out of these shows. And it won't necessarily be linked to the number of viewers because you don't know what they're going to be, and also the clubs want the money up front. So if we take a look at when these shows come out, they're often sort of 6 or 9 months after the end of the season. Well, the club's been giving away its access for a much earlier period, and they'd much rather have the cash up front. So I think the clubs will potentially benefit from the ability to sell associated merchandise, and anybody that's followed the Welcome to Wrexham show will have seen the success that Wrexham have had in terms of their merchandise and so on. And I think that's where the clubs will be looking to benefit, in addition to the fee that they get from the producer.
Yeah, the Palace one was about our academy, which was very interesting. It has increased interest. There's no doubt the attendances have gone up, albeit from a small base. The attendances have gone up at our academy games. But also it's put a lot of players in the shop window as well, so it's actually quite a shrewd move. Speaking of which, our next question comes from Lee Ashby, who gets a very special Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, as you're about to discover why. As Lee Ashby says, luckily I was able to visit Wembley twice last season. The first time was when my beloved Crystal Palace didn't quite make things happen against Chelsea, which is very much a euphemism. We were sure none of us came away from that game thinking, we didn't quite make things happen. It was we're playing wing backs. The second visit to Wembley was for the non-league final day. Lee says that I live in Bromley and the tickets were well priced to give my sons their first Wembley experience and to give the Ravens some support. My question is about the distribution of ticket money for non-league day. Newport Pagnell v Littlehampton was for the Vars prior to the Bromley-Wrexham game. I want to know how much those teams, Newport Pagnell and Littlehampton, would earn from the day. 45,000 tickets were sold, but I don't know if the money was distributed by allocation or another system. Additionally, as it was covered by BT Sport, would these clubs have earned TV money?
Right. The FA Vars is a FA competition, and therefore I went into the handbook to find out the details. And the way that it operates is that the FA sell the rights to BT. The FA are responsible for selling the tickets at Wembley and pocket those receipts. Now, if the clubs are selling tickets direct, they will get a small commission. But ultimately, what we're looking at here is prize money. So the winner of the FA Vars gets £30,000 and the runners-up gets 15,000. So, for a club at that level, it is significant. But I think the big issue is actually getting to the final itself, because if you are a loser in the semi-final, you only get £1,725, whereas you get to the final, you're guaranteed. You get £5,000 for getting to the final, and then you get 15 or 30,000. So the clubs are rewarded because there was a decent crowd on the day. They don't get any additional money from TV because, again, that's part of the prize money allocation sorted out by the FA. The FA are the risk taker as far as the competition is concerned, because if there's a crowd of 5,000, these two clubs would still get those fixed sums. So that's where the FA, it's an FA competition. The FA determine the level of reward for the individual club, and I'm sure that of that £30,000, the players will be on win bonuses. But when you get to a final of a prestigious competition, it doesn't matter whether it's park football or the World Cup. You're not thinking about the money when you're playing the match.
It does make you wonder, Kieran, as well, that quite rightly, the Vars and the trophy played at Wembley. It does make you wonder why the National League playoff game final isn't played at Wembley. I know it might not be set in stone, but it doesn't seem right that they miss out on a trip to Wembley. Especially they have to come to London anyway, because it's more than likely than not to be northern teams, and they don't even get a trip to. Not that London Stadium isn't a decent stadium. I'm sure they'll be delighted to play in it, but they want to play at Wembley.
Well, I think they will be playing at Wembley in 2023. I'm pretty certain. I read recently that the National League have been in contact, and the National League have come in for a lot of criticism, some of which is certainly deserved. But they do seem to be listening to some of the issues. And I may have got this wrong, but it's stuck in my memory that I think the final this year is going to be when there may have been issues last summer in terms of double bookings or something similar. Which prevented the final taking place at Wembley. But yes, from a player's point of view, and yes, we know that the players are professional athletes, but every footballer is also a dreamer, because they started playing football at 6 or 7 and sticking on their boots and going to that first training session. And at the back of your mind, even at our age, we still dream of scoring a goal at Wembley, don't we?
No, I've parked that one. I parked that one when I was about 7. I was quite a realistic little kid, to be perfectly honest. I decided at the age of 7 that my dreams should go in a different direction, Kieran. I dreamt that one day there'd be some kind of independent broadcasting thing where people could get together.
Superb.
I'm also going to reveal, Kieran, in the spirit of Christmas, that I had read that too about next year's National League playoff final. I just wanted to make it look like we were on the ball and that you knew what was going on. It's Boxing Day, Kieran. Rather, this pod is going out on Boxing Day. So there will be many people of all ages proudly wearing a Christmas present of their club's kit, their club shirt. And our last 2 questions are about just that. And I think over the course of 3 years that we've been doing this, Kieran, I think we've probably had more questions about kits and kit manufacture than anything else. And that includes Bury and Man United. So that shows how many we've had. The first one comes from Stuart McIntosh, who says, all too often badges are plastic or ironed on. Do clubs get the option of an embroidered badge and have to pay more for it? So choose the cheaper option, or is it a case of they get what they're given? I presume, Kieran, that depends on what level they're playing at, doesn't it?
It does. I spoke to my friend Phil, who runs oldfootballshirts.com. And he is an expert on football shirts. We're enthusiasts. He's a grandmaster when it comes to this. And he says that when it comes to embroidered badges, they're normally woven separately to the shirt, and then they're stitched, or they are heat pressed onto the shirts. The likes of Araya, I know Brighton used to have a sort of an embroidered one, that they were certainly heat pressed one, but we've now moved into the realms of some clubs, and that doesn't include Brighton and Palace, but some clubs I think have player specification shirts. Remember, you can pay an extra £40 for these different shirts from certain club shops, and they will have lightweight rubberized badges with no show through, so to reduce chafing. of chafing of the upper body of your highly tuned athlete. So it does vary. I think clubs do have that as an option, and of course, they're looking at it from a cost point of view. I think most fans would rather have some form of formal badge rather than just a transfer.
This fantasy you have, Kieran, of still scoring the winning goal at Wembley, how does it play out? Is there some kind of virus that affects young footballers, and then they finally get down the alphabet? And you're not free, are you? By the way, Kieran, because we've just lost McAllister. He's gone he's gone off to Real Madrid. Can't get anyone else to play. You've got a couple of Brighton kits. You want to put that on and give us a run out? And
I still have recurring dreams of playing for Brighton.
Do you?
I am a. Maybe, as the Baroness says, I do have the mind of a 12-year-old in the sense that all I think about is football and music and food, and trying to get a serious conversation out of me is impossible. So I still dream of playing football, and I still physically dream at night of scoring or playing or turning up with my boots. I used to read. I used to go and read, Roy the Rovers, just like anybody, and that part of football, that romance of football, I've still got.
I used to read books about archaeology, and Just William. Of course, I love Just William. You know what we need to do, Kieran? We need to get a campaign. We need to go to the FA and say what we need: the walking FA Cup final. That's got to be played at Wembley.
That'd be fantastic.
That'd be great. I mean, there wouldn't be a lot of people watching it, Kieran, I don't think. No. But you might get to... You know this mate of yours, Phil, the expert on kits? His surname's not Shelley, is it?
It is.
Is it? Well,
it is, yes.
Your mate Phil Shelley may not know as much about kits as you think he does, Kieran, because we've got a question from him. And Phil Shelley, he asked a question that I think many, many, many football fans will be asking on this very day, to be perfectly honest, especially if they've had to lash out money for their kids. Phil Shelley's question to end this Boxing Day special is, do kit manufacturers ever consider the selling price of replica shirts? Knowing, as we do, that it can be made for a very few pounds, what is stopping them resetting the price to make them affordable to so many more fans? In turn, this would also curtail the market for fakes, which would be a win-win for manufacturers and for fans. More fans would buy more shirts, and fewer fans would resort to buying fakes, the sale of which funds criminal activity. Like so many things around football, Kieran, it's such a simple and obvious question. You do wonder why the kit manufacturers and the football clubs haven't said, but there will be a reason, as you'll explain.
Well, there will. First of all, I think there's a cultural issue. If you look at countries such as the United States, Japan, Germany, and so on, they're used to paying high prices for branded goods.
Yeah,
and if you go to the States and if you try to buy something, if you go to an NFL match or an NBA match and you try to buy a sports jersey there, you will get absolutely taken to the cleaners.
Yeah.
And nobody will blink. That is, if you want if you want a Lakers jersey or whatever it's going to be, well, you're getting the Lakers name on it, so therefore expect to pay a premium price. So when we then look at prices of shirts in the Premier League, we notice that the likes of, if you want a Manchester United Adidas shirt, that's going to cost you 70 notes, or I think it's around about 100. It'll be more than 100 if you want the match standard shirt. And the reason for that is that these clubs have a significant number of fans who are travelling and want to go to the megastore and want to have the experience of buying from the Manchester United or the Liverpool or the Chelsea megastore or whatever it's going to be, and therefore they are willing to pay a higher price. Whereas if we then look at clubs, again, we refer to our own clubs, Palace and Brighton. I think our shirts are 52. So we're our kit's produced by Nike. Well, Nike also sell the shirts of what's it, Spurs, Chelsea, Liverpool, all of whom are charging £70. The quality of the fabric is no different. You're not getting more material. Every product that you buy consists of three elements: it's materials, labour, and overhead. It doesn't take longer to produce a Liverpool shirt than a Brighton shirt. It doesn't take longer to produce. You're with Puma these days. Yeah. So you got Manchester City and Palace. Both Puma. It doesn't take longer to manufacture a Manchester City shirt compared to a Palace shirt. So why is there a price differential? It's simply because there are more fans who are buying shirts sort of not on spec, but who are attending matches as an experience, and the shirt manufacturers and the clubs know that big clubs attract big prices, and they justify it on the grounds that look at how much money we're spending on player X and player Y, so therefore £70 for a shirt is a good deal. So going back to Phil's position, from the manufacturer's point of view, if we take a look at the Adidas deal with Manchester United, Manchester United are guaranteed £75 million a year from Adidas. Assuming that they are in the Champions League, or rather they don't drop out of the Champions League for more than 2 seasons. And Adidas say, okay, well, we need to get £75 million back. If we sell a shirt for, let's say that a shirt costs 30 quid to produce. It's actually a lot less than that, but and we sell it at 40 quid. So therefore, Adidas are making £10 per shirt. If we sell exactly that same shirt for 70 quid, we're making £40 profit. So what you would have to do is that if you're selling the kit at 40 quid, you'd have to sell 4 times as many shirts. And you start to do the economics, you start to crunch the numbers. And even if you think that there's going to be a smaller level of sales of snide shirts, which there will be to a certain extent, but your snide shirt's going for 20 quid. So it's very difficult to undercut the counterfeiters in respect of this. So therefore, the branded sellers take the view that we will simply pitch the price at where we think the market will not be squeezed too much, and we'll still get plenty of walk-up fans willing to pay £70 or £75 for those big club shirts.
I suppose the problem is, Kieran, as well, we know football fans. We know what they're like. If Palace and Brighton were to start next season and say, new kit's in, 35 quid a shirt, every Palace fan and Brighton fan would go, what's wrong with them?
Yeah.
That can't be right. It was 70 quid last year. They'll assume that the quality is poor. And if the club will go, no, we think we'll sell more shirts, and also it will cut out the fakes that people still go, no, I want to pay 70 quid for that shirt. Because that's the way it works. Because even in a time of economic hardship, there are still enough people, the clubs will gamble, either in this country or abroad, to pay full whack for the kit, aren't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All of which seems to be a cunning lead-in by producer Guy into us saying the first ever Price of Football replica shirt is still available to pre-order, available in adults and kids sizes. And when you mentioned size 52 earlier, I thought that's what you were talking about, size 52. They don't go that big even at Palace, do they? All the profits will go to Gambling with Lives. You can find the link to our online shop by going to priceoffootball.com or our social media pages or the description of this episode in your podcast app. The pre-order period ends at 5 p.m. on Friday, December the 30th, so get yours ordered now. I'm afraid we can't tell you exactly how long it will take to arrive, but it won't be days. Thank you to everyone who's donated to the pod via our Patreon page. If you'd like to make a small monthly contribution to the pod as well, that's very kind of you. You can do so by going to patreon.com/priceoffootball. And if you have a question you'd like answered on the show, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. We will be back on Thursday, December the 29th, or in our world, in about 5 minutes' time, with another questions episode. In the meantime, I shall hand you over to Mr. Kieran Maguire for his customary farewell.
All right. Well, thanks as always for your support. And you can support the show in as many ways as possible. I've not got a list of celebrities, so we can say Santa Claus and Rudolph. But even that's a bit late, as today's sort of unboxing day, but it's not. So, yeah, thanks for the support, and we'll speak to you soon.
Well, Santa and Rudolph are all right now for the next couple of weeks. They could do it, couldn't they?
Yes.
I mean, they'll be knackered, but that'd be a great pod, wouldn't it? Santa and Rudolph talking football. Yeah, although Rudolph would have to have a red and blue nose, obviously that'd be. But bye, everybody. It's Christmas. I'm waffling.
Bye.
The price of football. The price of football.